Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I just want to chat with you guys a little bit about rethinking volume. Now, this video probably, won't even be up for months, but I'm making it in February of 2022, right? And kind of when I'm looking at where I'm at, a lot of people who followed it during that time, Isaac's vlogs, because assuming he might still be doing them at this point, Isaac doesn't do a lot of volume yet. He's an advanced drug-free lifter making great gains. We've got him up benching around 315, deadlifting 500. Squat should be is past 400 at this point. Guy can overhead press over 200. And he doesn't do a lot of volume. He trains 3 days a week on basically a squat, which is like a legs day, a push day, which is, again, just pressing, and then a deadlift and pull day. And he only does about 8 to 10 sets per body part, with the exception being like his delts at that point, because he does do 8 sets of bench, then 8 sets of overhead press on his press day. So front delts, triceps get a little more, but otherwise that's pretty much where he is. Up about 8 to 10 work sets per muscle per week. There's splash over between things like the squat and the deadlift. So some of the muscle groups might be getting 15, 16, maybe quads and glutes, just because we do a lot of squatting and deadlifting, right? But he's making gains. I've had a lifter, some of the lowest volume I've ever gotten a guy to big numbers on. I had a drug-free guy, maybe 2 years ago at this point, who we took him up to a 500 squat and a 320 bench. Okay. Now, granted, he was at a slightly higher body fat. He was over 200. He was probably about 240. He was eating. But we took him from like a 280 bench press up to a 320. Took him from a 450 squat to a 500, in about 8 or 9 months. We only did 10 sets per body part, approximately. Now he was running conjugate at the time, so it's kind of hard to determine how many sets we count, speed work as. But he wasn't doing a whole lot of supplemental work. Well, what do I mean by that? Outside of his max work and speed work, he was basically doing good mornings. We worked in some glute bridges and stuff for a little while. We did closed grip benching, band press downs. He did lots of rows. Okay, about 10 sets of rows a week. That's it. That's all he did on top of the MEDE. We would do like 5 sets of closed grip bench. He did band press downs at home every day. Did 10 sets of rows a week. Like 5 sets of good mornings, 5 sets of glute bridges on top of the, the speed work and the max effort work. He was averaging, when you start trying to factor it in, maybe 10 sets. 10 sets a week per muscle, depending on how you count speed work. But we put on those sort of numbers, and this is an advanced lifter, 280 bench up to a 320 and a 450 squat up to a 500 in less than a year. And he didn't gain that much. He had been bulking before that, but he probably only gained about 7 or 8 pounds of body weight. So I've had these sort of lifters. And here's the thing, my really high volume guys, they don't make any more gains than my others do. Now, there do seem to be some people who have more of a volume tolerance, right, due to genetics, who seem to need more volume. But realistically, when I've got guys making gains on 8 sets, literally, and I have tons of guys with the deadlifting. I have guys who we don't do any supplemental deadlift work, unless you count pull-ups and stuff, who do 8 sets of deadlifts. Some of them do glute ham raises and stuff, or good mornings with it. Some of them don't. But I've had plenty of intermediate lifters who we put 50, 60, 70, 80 pounds on their deadlift in a matter of months. So what do I mean by that? Taking guys from, low 300s past 400, in 6 months. doing about 8 sets of deadlifts, oftentimes with no additional posterior chain work outside of squatting. Only back work they might be doing is pull-ups or rows. And they're growing. And here's the thing. We can talk all we want about, hey, the 10 to 20 sets seems to be the optimal range, but here's the point. That means the optimal range. A lot of guys are going to make max gains at 10. There's even been some studies showing about 7 or 8 is where some people cap off. So we start to beg the question, why do we do so much work? Why are we doing so much training? Especially if it's beating us up, because here's the other point. If you can grow off 8 sets, if you're an advanced lifter and you're growing at all, you're doing amazing. If you can grow at all month to month off 8 sets and you easily recover, why are we doing more? People say, well, just to not be lazy. Well, we can do conditioning. Right? I do tons of GPP and conditioning work. Why don't you use that time to get into shape? Right? Instead of beating yourself up under the barbell. This is, again, one reason you guys see me taking with my own training with some of my clients. I'm starting to take people's volumes down more and more. Even less work of going to failure. All right, we're getting further from failure. I have guys focus on just high quality reps while leaving reps in reserve on everything. And they get stronger and bigger. At the end of the day, what does this tell us? That the diminished returns are a big deal. In other words, maybe at those lower thresholds, we're probably getting 90% of our possible growth. And if we're doubling our work, we're chasing, a tiny bit more. But at what cost? Is it affecting our recovery? Is it giving us overuse injuries? And I know a lot of coaches who prescribe, relatively modest overall volumes, and they get people jacked and strong. And again, this is without taking sets to failure, because again, that beats up recovery. So I don't know. I think it really, really does beg the question of why are we all doing so much work? And I think I've noticed people like Paul Carter, who is monstrously jacked, even in his later years. He said stuff like, look, people train too much. They train too hard and they train too much, and they don't recover. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.